I would say in the first place, I would hope that the legacy of our work is to provide a model for a thoughtful engagement with a very difficult history. You know, often when people think about history, conversations can get overheated, a lot of misinformation flows around, people make snap judgments, but we've been about a different kind of process. Thoughtful, informed, with respectful conversations from a wide variety of perspectives. So I think in the first place, we've tried to be a kind of model conversation. Secondly, I hope that what we're doing has a lasting impact, that what we're trying to do to engage with its history now will endure decades from now. I think one of the dangers when you do a project like this is that it's a kind of flash in the pan, and that for the moment it's wonderful and engaging, but it doesn't last. So what I really hope is that the kind of reflective engagement that we have engaged in this year can be institutionalized so that it continues and that future generations of Hoyas, as well perhaps as descendants, can continue to engage well into the future. I think that the story at Georgetown, although certainly representative of larger institutional patterns, the underlying relationship between slavery and the American university, the story here is unique. Nobody else has this very dramatic, very clear moment of historical trauma as when those almost 300 men, women, and children were sold in 1838 by people who were closely affiliated with Georgetown. So the story is, I think, uniquely powerful and compelling. But the university still has to engage with that story, and I think the university setting has been really helpful in a variety of ways. First of all, it starts with leadership. It was President DeGioia who formed the working group on his own initiative because he had, I think, an understanding of the opportunity presented by the reopening of what was then called Mulledy Hall. He thought to himself, we really need to talk about this. So he organized the working group to sustain that effort. And that leadership was crucial. Then to engage in this work in a university environment is really advantageous as well, because what are universities best at? They're best at scholarship and teaching. And I think this is what our effort was all about, an intensive, careful exploration of the history with the intent of expanding our historical knowledge of Georgetown's relationship to slavery, and then finding new ways to teach that history effectively, not just in the classroom, but sort of instilling it in the university's, what you might call the landscape of memory. How do we commemorate this history? How do we memorialize it? How do we raise it to the surface of people's consciousness? So that's all about teaching. So I think we've been true to the university's values of scholarship and teaching in pursuing our own reflections on its history, and that's made for a stronger process. I think I'd like people to know that we really took our tasks very seriously, that we engaged in a careful process of historical analysis, that we took the information that we learned about what had happened and deliberated very thoughtfully on what it meant for Georgetown today, and that we tried to come up with some creative responses to the question of how Georgetown should respond to this history in the present. This history can't be undone. People cannot be unsold. So the question is, what can we do today to honor their legacy? And there's a lot of things that we can do, but perhaps the most important one is to be better people now, is to be aware of our own blind spots and to try to correct them. I think that's probably the most important lesson of this history.